It is with great pleasure to welcome back on set General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst. General, thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. You know General McCormick. You know him. He's speaking the truth.
McKenzie?
Yeah. Rather. Sorry.
Yeah, I know him very well. He was an outstanding commander in CENTCOM. And had a lot of challenges himself. And he's reflecting something that we're very much aware of. This actually, our planning in dealing with the regime actually started when they took over. And when they first killed over 300 of us in 1983, when Reagan was president, blew up 2 embassies and blew up our Marine barracks, we realized we had an adversary on our hands. So it was in even those early days that Central Command began to plan for a war with Iran, given what they had already done to us. And then they continued to kill us. What President Trump is different from those previous 7 presidents is while many of them had to deal with Iran, who has killed Americans, all 7 of them had to deal with their overall aggression and destabilization. And not one of them was ever really willing to confront them in any consequential way. And I love what you're saying up there in the introduction. President Trump is trying to put an end to this 47-year experience. That is the purpose of what has taken place here. And what's the motivation? There's intense motivation that came out after the 12-day war to include our taking down their nuclear capability. What Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump recognized, based on their intelligence services looking at this, that Iran recommitted to all of their goals and objectives. And that was missile development, Chinese helping them, more drones, recover their nuclear program. And then the 4th thing is they began to continue to funding the proxies. They used different banks to do it, passed it through Istanbul, hundreds of millions of dollars, and nothing had changed. If anything, they were recommitted to all of those goals. And they realized we have got to do something about it. We can't wait, because they're developing longer-range ballistic missiles, more lethality, recover a nuclear program with the potential, obviously, to use it. And that created a sense of urgency. And then they looked to the central commander, they looked to the IDF commander, and they are dusting off plans that already exist and have existed for years.
That's the thing. I just, what General McKenzie said is so important, because you've got these Democratic senators and House members. We hear about it every day from somebody, and the legacy media. There's no planning. Of course there's planning. They are insulting the military, and they are using falsehoods. And that's why I think you've said this a lot. Now you've got company with this General McKenzie. I mean, it's something that needed to be said. It needed to be put out there. Of course there's been planning. They've been planning for almost 5 decades.
Yeah, and they don't only just put a plan in place, then they go out and practice it.
Yeah,
in tabletop exercises, CPXs, and then they adjust the plans, because the enemy always has a vote. And what we do, so our audience can understand, we organize a red team to oppose us in those computer exercises, and we give that red team all the resources that Iran has, and they're operating completely independent. There's no coaching by anybody, and they put huge pressure on our blue force. So as a result of that, all the options that Iran could possibly come up with are exercised. I mean, it was a revelation to some people when they imposed their will on the Straits of Hormuz, and they said, "Oh, Americans weren't prepared for the Straits." You got to be kidding me. When I was a division commander, 2-star general, a corps commander, 3-star general, and a 4-star general decades ago, we knew that. We knew that would be one of the first things that they would do, and we have worked against that. We know exactly what these guys are doing and what they can do to interfere with us if we begin to impose our will on them, which we will do.
Yes.
Our military plans call for us to open the Straits of Hormuz and use military force to do it, and to secure it and keep it open, to recover the nuclear, whatever that is left there, and finish off their ballistic missile program as much as we possibly can, to include drones. and we will have accomplished our assigned missions. That's a fact.
On Hormuz, General, there's been a lot of talk about this Pentagon final push, more troops coming into the Persian Gulf theater, the Mideast theater in general. Can you comment on that? What does that mean? I mean, we will reopen Hormuz, and in the next segment, we're going to talk about the Venezuelan model of who's going to run the money and the oil. But in terms of the military side of this, as you say, it will be reopened. A lot of people think this new addition to troops are part of that reopening. Do you think they are?
Well, the president has options, and certainly the Straits of Hormuz, cargo, and what it truly represents, 90% of their oil distribution is sitting right there on that island. And he has options to exercise here. In the war games that we've played in the past, we have used ground forces for short-range missions in, out, maybe stay a few days, depending on what the mission is. This is not an invasion force, to be sure. Anybody that wants to put that out of your mind, we're talking about 10,000, 20,000 troops at most here. An invasion force would be something north of 100,000. So this is give a very specific mission. It has a certain time duration associated with how long does it take to accomplish that mission, and then they're out of it.
And I'm just going to guess our Air Force has been planning this anyway by taking out various Iranian, whatever they have, missile sites or drone sites that are in that neighborhood, either on the cliffs of the Hormuz Strait or someplace. But there are, I'm just guessing, but I'll ask you, has this been in preparation already?
We have been working on this probably ever since they imposed their will. We began executing that war plan. And what does that mean? That means taking down anti-ship missiles at distance, long-range ballistic missiles at distance. The Shahed drones can go almost 1,000 miles, so we're going deep into Iran that can access the Straits of Hormuz, and then we're working close in to deal with what close in? Mine layers, small boats that could be suicide boats to interfere with shipping. They could fire drones from that small boat as well, or fire other kinds of short-range missiles at a boat. All of that is being exercised. And then the other thing is, do we have to control a piece of ground there in addition to having what overhead? What we have right now in the area are Apache attack helicopters, very effective, move slower than a jet fighter. We have A-10 Warhogs, which is an Air Force airplane designed with a single purpose. It's the only airplane in the entire Air Force, Navy, or Marine Corps inventory who's specifically designed to provide close support for troops on the ground. So they are operating in there right now. And as convoy came through, we would have drones up in the air supporting it. We'd have counted drones on those convoys, even on the merchant ships. We would have Apaches. We would have those close air support aircraft as well. There would be plenty of opportunity to suppress whatever they're going to throw at it. It doesn't mean, Larry, that they can't fire at us. They likely will be able to. It does mean, in our judgment, it's an acceptable risk, and we can minimize that risk.
Well, as you say, on this and other things, you're going to take out Iran's capabilities. I love that word, capabilities. I think that covers a lot of ground, and I think it's important that people hear you on this subject. Let me ask another thing. I guess it's on the area of diplomacy. So President Trump is saying he thinks he's negotiating with a new regime. That is to say, the leadership of the first regime has all been taken out. The leadership of the second regime has all been taken out. Now he thinks there's a third regime. If I get Mohammed Ghalibad, the former, I guess he was Speaker of the Parliament, or is Speaker of the Parliament, he was a member of the Revolutionary Guards. I don't know how new this is, but the president is saying, to some extent, it's like regime change. Now, I know you followed the diplomacy here. What do you make of this?
Well, they're different people, I think, but have affiliation with the same regime. These are all elite hardliners. Ghalibaf, the speaker, he was an IRGC general. He was in charge of a force that repressed the Iranian people years ago. He's as much of a thug as the Ayatollah was and all the other thugs that we've just been killing over the last couple of weeks. They're all part of that elitism, hardliners for sure. can we maybe bend them a little bit more to their will? Because I think the number one thing in their mind right now, Larry, is personal survival.
Yeah.
The second thing is the regime stays in place and so they can stay in power and have all the benefits of what they do. Remember, these people are all very, very wealthy. All of those generals in the IRGC, all those police commanders, they're all multi-millionaires.
It was a business. They were running a huge business enterprise.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like a mafia organization.
Yeah.
It's what it's like.
Yeah.
Everybody's wealthy.
Yeah.
And they want to maintain that lifestyle.
We need to bust through that, don't we? I mean, golly.
Larry,
I keep asking you.
The best thing to do with them is to kill them.
Yeah.
And that is the truth of it.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you don't like use that word lightly, but
Yes, sir.
these are killers of their own people. 30-something thousand, a couple thousand plus Americans in this deal as well. That is the best answer for them.
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm not the expert you are, but that makes the most sense. I keep asking, you know, there is a regular army, which by and large we have not hit too hard. Somebody from the regular army, you told me that a lot of them are draftees. Most of them are draftees. They're not as ideologically crazed as the Revolutionary Guard. I'm waiting for someone like that to come forward. Or, I don't know, maybe the Shah's son. I mean, he has certain claims to this and that. It's got to be somebody other than the Revolutionary Guard people.
Yeah, I think we have a ways to go yet, because if we end it, my preference is a military end to this, because I think we can force the economic collapse of the country, particularly by seizing, not destroying, but seizing their oil distribution point at Carg Island. And I think that is a much better preference than if we get a deal, we're going to throw the regime a lifeline, because they're going to want sanction relief. They're going to want a frozen assets released. They're going to get billions of dollars. And what does that do? That extends them and gives them an opportunity to recover.
You've said the military can do all the conditions we have, which are the capabilities of Iran. The military can handle that, with deal or no deal.
They can handle it.
Yes, sir.
There's no doubt in my mind about it. The Central Commander today is Admiral Brad Cooper. He's an exceptional officer. I've talked to him many times during all of this. He's on top of it. He's got the backing and confidence of the President of the United States, the Chairman of Joint Chiefs, and Secretary Hegseth. They are doing an outstanding job out there. They are very confident.
Terrific stuff. General Keane, as always, thank you, sir. We appreciate it very much.
Great talking to you, Larry.
Always.
And love it in person.
Always. Yes, sir. It's great to see you. By the way, you look very well.